In this video we're going to go ahead and take a look at creating the Java code for our application. And so I'm going to go ahead and close the virtual machine that I had open, and I'm going to go ahead now and take a look. I'll go ahead and close the main XML as well. Let's go ahead and take a look into our source folder. Under our project, let's go ahead and double click the Java file. And we've got our imports that are currently just 2 of them by default. I've got my public class that we're working with. Now in the previous videos we were working with the on-click event, and what we're going to do on this particular one is for the radio buttons, we're going to change it up here a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and say implements. So I'll go ahead and click there after the activity. We'll type in implements, and then for this one right here it's going to be radio and then group dot, and then after that it's going to be on, it's with a capital O, small n, and then checked change, and then the last part of it is listener. And so if you can type all that in, you'll get that here. It says RadioGroup dot OnCheckedChangeListener. So make sure that it's spelled correctly. We're going to see that we've got a couple different problems here to begin with, but that's okay, because when we work with our code we're going to go ahead and make the changes to this as we work with it. And here I am telling you to spell it right, and if I look at it here I can see that I did not spell it right. Listener. There we go, listener. And now that we've got that here, let's go ahead and move up here to the imports. We're going to go ahead and import something in here for this. We're going to import the Android dot widget dot radio group dot, and then the asterisk, and I'll go ahead and end that with the semicolon. There we go. So we're going to import that, and I want to go ahead and also import in all the widgets. So import Android dot widget dot asterisk, and we're going to go ahead and type in the semicolon and hit enter, and this is going to go ahead and give us what we need here to work with. If you look here, now that I look at this, project 3 activity has a little red squiggly line underneath it. If I hover over it, it tells us what our problem is. We've got 2 different fixes for this particular one, and that's the fact that we've got this RadioGroup.OnCheckedChangeListener, but we don't have any methods that actually can handle this. And so what we look here, it says add unimplemented methods. If I click that, it's going to create this method for me down here, OnCheckedChange. And so what that's going to say is whenever it's listening for any changes within my radio group, the code that's going to execute is going to be found within this area right here. So I've got that all set up now for our major part of our code, as far as the functionality part of our code is concerned, and I've got some imports in there to work with. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a look at linking up or synchronizing the XML file here with my Java file. And if you're familiar with previous applications, we usually do that right before the override. So I'm going to go ahead and space down the override, and we're going to set some of our objects up here. The first one that I want to work with is going to be my EditText for ET1. So I'll just type in EditText and then do ET1 and put the semicolon. The next one we're going to go ahead and do EditText and ET2, and the ET is just this abbreviation for EditText 1, 2, and then we're going to do the same thing here for EditText, and we'll just call it ET3. So that way we've got those 3 edit texts created. We've basically declared them. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the radio button. So I'm going to do radio button, and we're going to go ahead and I'll just call this one RB1, radio button 1. We're going to do the same thing here for radio button 2, or we'll just call it RB2, and radio button, this is going to be RB3. Alright, so we've declared those objects. I've got one more that I want to work with, and that's our radio group itself. And we're going to need to do this because whenever we're looking to see if our radio group or anything within our radio group has changed, we need to have that as an object we're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and do radio group, and then we're going to call this one RG1. and go ahead and put the semicolon there. So those are the objects that I want to synchronize or link up, whatever you want to call it here, with my XML. Now let's go to our onCreate method, and before it ends I'm going to go ahead and space that down. So before that last curly brace there for the onCreate method, I'm going to go ahead now and actually set them up to work with the objects that I have in my XML. So let's go ahead and do ET1 first. ET1 is going to be an edit text, and we're going to go ahead and say find view by ID for this one here. So we're going to type in find view by ID, and it's going to be synced up with the r.id, and we're going to go ahead and hit the period after that. And if you look at our list of the options that we have edit text 1, and we've got an ID for this edit text 1, so I'm going to go ahead and double click that, and we'll end that with a semicolon. Now to save some time, it's going to be easy for us to just copy and paste some things, and so that's what I'm going to work with. So I'll just go ahead and actually, before I do that, it looks like I have an error there, and I can tell what my error is. I'm missing the equal sign. ET1 equals this. There we go. So let's go ahead and copy that, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste it twice, and we're going to just modify the 1 here to a 2. So ET2 is going to be edit text 2, and ET3 is going to be edit text 3. So those are my 3 edit texts that I have on the graphical side. Now let's go ahead and do the radio button. So radio button 1, RB1, is going to equal, this is going to be a radio button, and for the radio button we're going to want to go ahead and move over the cursor there and type in find view by ID, and we're going to type in r.id dot, and the first one is going to be radio button 1, and I'll end that with a semicolon. And just to save some time and typing, I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and then we'll space down twice there, and we're going to go ahead and paste both of those for RB2 and RB3, and over here we're going to change that to radio button 2 and radio button 3. So now we've linked up all of our edit text and our radio buttons. The last one that I have to work with is my radio group. So I'm going to go ahead and type in RG1, and we're going to say equals a radio group. And I'll go ahead and move the cursor over, and we're going to go ahead and type in find view by ID. We'll type in r.id dot, and if you look at my list, I have a problem. In fact, I actually have a problem on purpose, because I wanted to show you what to do if you ever get to this point and you don't see what it is you're looking for. So we're looking for the radio group, and guess what? The radio group does not show up. And so now let's think about some troubleshooting problems that we have here in this project. Why does the radio group not show up? Well, let's open up that main XML one more time and take a quick look at the actual XML. Under the radio group itself, these were the attributes that we had set. Look at the radio button. Is there anything that we have missing? Well, if you're looking at the code here, it will tell you the first thing that you see under the radio button sets the ID, and I do not have an ID set for the radio group. And so we can go ahead and modify that, and I want to almost say we can modify it on the fly, because in fact if we type it in Android, and then we're going to go ahead and do the, let's see, we want to do the ID, right? So ID equals, and then I don't actually like that IntelliSense. I'm going to go ahead and click off of that. There we go. We're going to do the double quote, and then we're going to do the @ symbol to reference, and we're going to put the plus symbol in there to add it because it doesn't already exist, and we're going to type in the ID, and then /, and then what we want to call this particular ID. And so what I want to work with is, if you look at the way the radio buttons were done for their IDs, it starts off with a small r. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep that same case sensitivity there, small radio, and then capital G-R-O-U-P for radio group, and we'll call that one radio group 1. And this will set that ID for it. What I mean by on the fly is, if I go ahead and save it, my XML has been saved, my XML file. If I go back over here to my Java file, and you can see where I have the period, I'm going to go ahead and backspace, and then retype that period, you'll see here that our radio group has already showed up for us. And so it's kind of nice that we can do that without having to start it and restart everything. So I'll just go ahead and click Radio Group, and that'll link it up to the radio group, and I'll end that with the semicolon. Now the last thing that I need to do is I need to set the OnCheckedChangeListener for my radio group, and I don't want to do it for each individual button. I actually want to do it for the whole group, so that if anything changes within the group, then the code that we're going to type in here is going to kind of be flagged or it's listening for, and it kind of marks it saying, hey, something's going on. So the last thing that I want to do, and it's very similar to what I did in Project 2 with the buttons, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll type in RG1, which is my radio group 1, and we're going to go ahead and put the period, and we're going to say set on, and if you take a look at the options that I have here, set on, you've got the check change listener, and you've also got the on click listener, which we're familiar with from the previous project. We're going to set the on checked change listener, so I'm just going to go ahead and double click it so it fills it all in, and then for the listener what we're going to do is we're going to just type in the word this, and we'll end that with the semicolon. And that'll conclude this particular video. In the next video itself, we're going to start looking at the conditional statements and the code that we're going to write in here when actually we run the application, and it's going to have to evaluate which object was selected and run code for each individual object.